Welcome back to part 2 of my Snuff tutorial for piano. Hopefully you found part 1 useful. What we're going to do this time in part 2 is study the main vocal melody along with the accompaniment. Now I personally think it's the most challenging aspect of the song, but also the most fun to play once you get the coordination and the timings down. So we're going to go over to the piano now and dive straight in. Okay, so to start us off, I'm going to start with the introduction and then lead straight into the main vocal melody, which is what we'll be working on today. And this is at normal tempo. So now that's done, we're going to use the same format as last time and break everything down to make it easier. We're going to start with the right hand vocal melody and just single notes, nothing too difficult at this point. Now that pretty much sums up the entire vocal melody as far as the notes go. Now bearing in mind what we did just there isn't the correct fingering and some of the timings and rhythms were off from what you'd normally play, but it really is just to illustrate what notes you'll be using and how straightforward it is when you break it down. Now with that said, you'll probably notice that there aren't many notes we actually use. You've got the A, the G sharp, the F sharp and the E, and you'll occasionally go down to the C sharp. But there aren't actually many notes either, so it is quite a simple little phrase. What makes it tricky is when you mix it with the accompaniment, the rhythm and the timing, and placing it within those and getting the coordination right. We'll talk about all of those in a moment, but that's basically the vocal melody. And now to illustrate how the vocal melody fits in with the tempo, we're going to use a nice slow pulse and fit the vocal melody around this. So hopefully from that you can see how it's the rhythm and the timing that's going to throw you off more than the actual notes, because there aren't many notes involved in the vocal line, as we said before, it's the timing. So what we're going to do now is look at the right hand accompaniment that goes with the melody that makes it even more complex for you. So here's the right hand accompaniment that goes underneath the melody. We'll mix the two together in a moment and play that at slow speed, but first of all here's the individual notes for the accompaniment. So good news and bad news about the accompaniment. Good news is that we've already covered probably half the work already in the introduction. You'll notice that we have the beginning of the accompaniment here. And then we go into these thirds, going down to the A, and they probably look pretty familiar because we covered exactly the same notes and rhythms in the introduction. So if you've worked on that, then you already know how to play this part of it. Now the bad news is that we have to mix this with the vocal line over the top using the same hand. So you've got one part on beat, another part off the beat, and this is what takes its toll on the coordination. So here's the tricky part. This is when you mix the accompaniment and the vocal melody together using the same hand. We're going to demonstrate this now nice and slow. Okay, something I want you to bear in mind with mixing these two together with the right hand is when you're practicing, if it does seem difficult, just remember that the bass components are the accompaniment and the melody line. It's only again when you mix the two together that it becomes tricky. So always remember, don't be discouraged, remember that you've just got a simple accompaniment here. Obviously that's the easy part because it's just straight eighth notes on the beat, nice and easy. As you already know, what makes it difficult is the offbeat rhythm part for the vocal melody. Nearly every note there is off the beat, and you mix that with an on-beat accompaniment and you've got a recipe for rhythmical disaster, if you like. So just remember, vocal line, practice that, accompaniment, practice that, and then put them together slowly. Now obviously everybody's different, but I found that personally the most challenging part of the song whilst I was learning it. I think if you manage to get the vocal line down with the accompaniment, then the rest of the song, rhythmically at least, shouldn't be a problem for you. One thing I will point out though is that if you're having a hard time with these rhythms, as I did, if you have the same learning curve as me, then just remember that you probably will start to get frustrated when it becomes difficult and you're having a hard time with it. But remember that you are training your brain as much as you are training your fingers, because these rhythms and this coordination is a mental skill, as we said in part 1. So start nice and slow, work your way up, work on the parts individually, and then add them together into the same hand, and that should be the best basis for you for learning it. So just to finish this section off, I'm going to place a nice slow pulse underneath the vocal line with the accompaniment for the right hand, just so you can see how it fits in with the tempo. Okay, good news. For everyone that's been following me since part 1 of the tutorial, the left hand accompaniment for this vocal section is exactly the same. And by exactly the same, I mean identical. The same notes, the same rhythms, everything. So I'll play it for you anyway, just for demonstration purposes, but if you've practiced the introduction, then you've already gotten this down, so good job. Okay, we're nearly there. We're going to place both hands together now at a nice slow tempo. And just to wrap up, we're going to do a full speed demonstration now with both hands, just to show you what you'll end up with if you practice. So that should give you plenty to work on until part 3 is released. Now don't worry if part 2 takes you quite some time to get used to, because as I mentioned before, when I was learning the song, this section and these rhythms gave me a hard time as well. So as long as you practice hard, work slow and steady, you should be absolutely fine. And as always, if you need any help, feel free to give me a shout and I'll see what I can do for you. Next time, part 3, we'll be looking at a bridge section before the song really kicks off. So there'll be plenty of different chords and faster rhythms for us to look forward to. So thanks a lot for watching, and in the meantime, stay metal.